Hello, comrades. It's Premier Rever, and I am back again for another getting started tutorial. But this time I want to focus on something a little bit different, and it's talking about the strategies and how you might want to get started and how you might end up choosing to play your map. It definitely depends on your play style, right? Which you may not even know what that is if you're a brand new player, but what I've come to is probably and arguably the best starting place, easiest starting place, I should say, on the map. Like if you don't want much of a challenge, come here. If you look down, if you open your mini map here, and if you look, we're kind of in the middle of the bottom of the map. One of the things that makes this the easiest in a lot of ways is that you're real close to a port, right? So we can, it's not the biggest port, but again, the size of the port, especially in the beginning, doesn't make too much difference. But it wouldn't be very expensive for us to get electricity. It wouldn't be very expensive for us to get rail over to here, right? And it wouldn't be very, I mean, even a road, so we could do rail or road imports. And you may say to yourself, well, what makes this the easiest in my opinion? The fact is that you have the natural resources over here that you would need. In addition, you have a pretty good amount of flat area. So the flat area is pretty important if you want to put in a decent sized farm. The other resources can make the start extremely easy. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm talking about by these resources. So the three resources in the game that are natural, well, I guess the trees could be considered that, but you can replant those. So they're sort of like a consumable sort of resource. But you know, as far as fixed, where you would have to start in a certain map location where the resources already are, is going to be the oil, the iron, and the coal. And I mentioned that in the last episode. So let's like click on the oil rig, and we did this before. But look, you have oil right here. Some people consider a quote oil start so easy as to almost be cheating, right? Like in other words, if you don't want a hard start, you can come in here. And the reason for that is, if you take a look, this is an oil rig, right? And let's go to a spot that's nice and, you know, relatively green. You want to space these out logically. I'm sure you guys will figure that out on your own in a sense. There we go. Now once we place one down, you know, you might place another one down. Again, try to keep it in the green. Do your best. It's sort of, you know, sort of hard to match the circles up perfectly there, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. You'll get a lot. You don't even need to connect these with pipes. Right. Once we were to get these built, oh, I don't have auto build on, do I? So let's real quick just get them auto building. Now you can use your rubles or your dollars. A lot of times I like to start out using up my dollars, but it really doesn't make too much difference. I'm on a medium start here. Or no, am I on the hard? No, I'm on the medium start where I get 3,500 or 3.5 million in rubles. So let's go ahead and play. Now the thing about this is if we were to build a road, let's we need to get a road and some electricity, right? So let's see what we can do as far as, and I'm gonna, you know, just go with an asphalt road because it's the most efficient. Yeah, I don't know how well we're gonna get over this hill. Yeah, let's go back a little bit to that where that's green. See if we can just go over the hill without doing much leveling. Now, yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit tough. Let me just level it up. Hopefully it'll turn green up to here. Spend a little money, right? But you'll see with very easy. Yeah, I'm leveling a little more than I would intend to. Now that's another, you know, question for the ages is the flattening. The flattening and leveling tools are definitely, where are we going to, right? We're all the way down there. Okay, so let's just cut right across. Kind of put that at the wrong angle. I'm not worried about being too, you know, too perfect here, so to speak, right? Yeah, don't slap things down. Be nice and neat about it, right? But again, it's all your play strategy. You can slap things in like I am, right? No law against it. Oh, a little green, or a little red. See, sometimes if you go fiddle around, sometimes you just can't get it to turn green like I did, but. And let's play time and get all that stuff built. So now we have roads, right? So now the one other thing I'm going to need here is a road vehicles depot. And we might as well put it close to where we might build our starting city and all that stuff, right? So we will, oops, need flat terrain. We'll level it up. And that should be built in a minute. Now, once that's built, we need to get some power. So let's, while that's being built, let's get, might as well run a high voltage line, right? Because that's, well, you have to run it at least some distance, but, you know, we'll run a high voltage line over to, yeah, I'm going to go to like here. The high voltage lines are more expensive. You want to try to cut down on that. And then I'll put in a switch, just because it's almost always a good idea to put in a switch. I think I'll put it this way a little bit, and you'll see why in half a second. So we can put our transformer right there, and then we'll need a little bit more high voltage line here and here. But this way you can extend this one way or the other, right? In the future, if you just go right into this, you're almost always going to end up wanting power at some point in the future. So now we have this, and what this does, if you're very unfamiliar, you have high voltage power and you have medium voltage power. Now these don't make, you know, to be honest, like I've never, if I go with the small ones, you're likely to run out of power. But if you know that that area is never going to use more power, then, you know, you probably want to go with the small ones just because they're cheaper. You know, your money's not unlimited here, right? So, you know, if you want to maximize things, if efficiency is important, you may not want to use these biggest wires, but they do, you know, carry about 3 times the electricity of the other ones. So what I want to do in this case is I want to put down my substation first, now that I think about it, and I want to make sure it's built someplace that you see those yellow lines to the 2 of them. Let me spin it around. And, you know, I'm going to put it on the other side of the street so that, and you probably want to even center it a little bit more. Like I'm going to go a little more this way for future consideration. That's not going to happen in this video, but there's a chance that I'm going to put my next, you know, oil rigs, if I were going to set up more, further this way. So you might want to do a better job of placing all of the oil rigs. If you take the auto build off immediately, remember that, you know, like you don't have to build them, right? Like you can just plan them out so that they're like a space holder for you. But anyway, let's go ahead and take this, and I don't think they'll, yeah, I don't think they'll necessarily directly attach without a little turn in there, because there's a sharp angle kind of issue. So there we go. So now we should have power. Up building is without power. That's right. We have to purchase it. By default, it starts on cell mode, and really it doesn't, because it's saying sell nothing. But we're going to come over here to purchase, and there's no particular reason not to turn this up to 100%, other than if you really didn't want to purchase any. If that, like, it's not going to charge you more because you're purchasing 100%. It's only the actual amount that you're using, which is for us 0.029, right? Or 0.14, sorry. Does that make sense? So we're not spending the full amount. It's just sort of a limiting factor. All right, let's come here, and there's a truck. It's called an oil tank. And in the mode that I'm starting in, we get instant access to all of the vehicles, I believe. So I think this one, or is there, I think there might be a, yeah, this one's 9 tons. This one's 12. I thought there might be a tractor trailer version. No, I guess it's this 12 is the biggest. Biggest is usually the best, not always. You can watch my videos on the truck's fuel usage for more details, but generally speaking, you want to take the amount that it carries, right, 12 tons of fuel, and divide it by the kilowatts, right? Because in other words, how many kilowatts am I using per ton, or I'm sorry, take the kilowatts and divide it by the fuel. So in this case, it's around 10, right? Where if we look at this, like 132 divided by 12 is like 11, right? So if we were to take a look at this one carries 7 tons, but it uses just as much power. So in other words, this one's going to be, I don't know, somewhere in the ballpark of 20 tons or kilowatts per ton, right? And that's a very direct correlation to how much fuel you're going to use. This guy will be far less efficient per ton of fuel. So we're going to buy 6 of these. Well, let's buy 8 of these just to go nuts, right? Just to show you. You know what? You can double click on these. Sometimes it's easier. Like I'll click on this one and, well, let's close this one. So I know which one. I'll click on the one on the end and I'll click on this one just so I know there. Now I'm going to set up two different two different ones, and they're all going to go to our export over there where we just built our road, right? Oops, no, don't start. So this one, which I forget which one he is going to go from here to here. And then this one is going to go from here to here. Now, let's do this, and we should be able to tell, yeah, see, this one's pointing me at this one, where if I hit the eyeball here, it brings me down to here. So I'm going to take this and do copy, and do 1, 2, 3, right? Send half of them on the one route. And then I know that this truck was the top one that I selected. 1, 2, 3. So if we just open another one of these, you'll see that it already has that. Now, you can come in situations and limit which type of thing it gets. So we could set this truck up to just pick up oil, right? But the fact of the matter is, in this particular case, that's unnecessary because we only have oil, right? Like, in other words, there's oil, and we have all these trucks. They're going to, like, it can't pick up or export anything but the oil. Now, one of the reasons in the game, I wish you could rename the vehicles. Hopefully one day they'll give that that ability, because we could call it, like, Oil Truck 1, right? Or Molna Oil Exports or something like that. Molna's the name of our town over there that we're exporting to. You get the idea. But so sometimes I set these like this. Oops, wrong way. To just do that. Now, another thing we might want to consider is putting this guy on weight, because when it comes to pick it up, and I don't want to get into too many details like that, but this guy, yeah, is the top one. So let's then go copy again, right? And now we'll copy this new course to these other guys. And see how now they've all got the new course where they're going to wait there, which is a good idea to have them waiting. Though, you know, that sort of depends, because they can also cause jam-ups if they're, depending on, use the weighting carefully is what I would say. So I clicked on the bottom one again, and we'll just set this guy up to wait. But we'll leave him on anything, right? So there won't be any obvious change to these three. But I'm going to start this guy, and then I'm going to start this guy. I'll just start, it doesn't really matter, but oops, did I not click start? Oh, he's waiting for the other guy to get out. Good. And then we'll just get each one of these guys started. Now notice we have no people, right? There's no people on our map. We can click here, 0 workers. And it's just a matter of, you know, somewhat monotonously clicking start on all of these guys. And they wait for each one to get out before, you know, only one truck at a time leaves, which in different buildings can cause some traffic. So keep in mind that the buildings function like this, where if you've got a lot of traffic in and out, they can back up onto the roads. And if you put, that's the biggest issue with like putting these guys on weight, is that if this road's really awful close, right? If 4 trucks are lined up here, they may stop all your traffic on this road. So one good idea would be to maybe have made this road a little further away. You know, like here, if we were to build another road coming off of here, build it from here, right? So that if 4 trucks backed up, they're not going to stop all of your other traffic. But there we go. I didn't know we were in night mode. I guess I should have turned that off for the YouTube, though it does look cool. And I like it when I'm playing, you know, when I'm playing solo or not recording on a map. It is a nice, you know, it's more a little more realistic. Now, don't be too picky, but apparently the sunrise and the sunset, the shadows go the same way. I don't know if they fixed that, but it's been a while since I played with nighttime. But there we go. If you look for, what do we start out with? 3.5 million, and we've spent 2.77, and we're now exporting oil. We have no people, so you could theoretically just run this map for a little while. Now, one of the things to watch out for is you're still going to get inflation. So this is a big issue in your strategy, and it can really make the game harder. So the reason I showed you this start, and there's only so many, you know, so much time I want to spend on this video, but I don't think, I mean, again, we could build more, right? I don't think it gets any easier than that, right? Let's see that we actually, yeah, I want to see the first truck sold. Well, here we can go to faster speed, right? So there we go. That's, as far as I know, the easiest strategy almost possible, because it doesn't require any people, and almost anything else you do is going to require people. Now, I don't doubt that there's somebody going to come up and say, no, you're wrong, but it's all good, right? Like if you find one that's this easy, the whole point is this is a very easy strategy. we're making money. There we go. And then, we could even buy more trucks if we wanted to, right? And you can judge, like, there's still, it sort of depends on how your quality of the source, and, it's going right into the truck. So we're not seeing anything here, but it's just going right into this truck. So depending on your round trip time to the border and back will kind of determine how many trucks that you need to purchase. And no matter where you're at on the map, this would really work, right? If you didn't put any constraints on yourself, there's no reason that you couldn't start anywhere near an oil supply and do something similar. Obviously, some of the oil supplies are a little better, a little worse. And here's what I was talking about, by the way. Unfortunately, the trucks are getting by, right? But the fact that they're sticking out there is sort of, could become an issue if they all end up sitting there waiting. It might end up blocking traffic coming from this one. And I didn't do this before, just sort of estimate it. It looks like that's a pretty good number of trucks so far, right? Because this guy came back right in time for that guy pulling out. Like, they're not waiting around too long. It's not like we have way too many of them. And you kind of want a truck ready to go, right? So that way your oil never slows down. All right, we're getting too much into the technical, in my opinion, of this. So where do you go from here? Like, I just ruined the game for you, right? Like, I mean, just, depending on your level of patience, we're now, if we come here, just so we mentioned this in the last episode, your economy, and we only have this month because this is the first month. But, already in the first month, now keep in mind, we've just purchased a lot of stuff, right? So when we do get to the next month, you'll see that we're making money. But when we take a look at your imported vehicles was 87,000, or I'm sorry, 49,000. Manpower was 87,000. And most of these imports from the Soviet bloc, all of these imports, another 80,000 were from the construction, right? We imported asphalt and steel and whatever else we needed. So when you think about this is, 240,000 or more. It's, well, no, not 240. Well, it was the amount we just spent, 230,000, right? So, but if you look, our money's already going up. Now, I know it's not going up, but again, you could add a few more oil refineries and go from there. So, where does that leave you? I mean, the easiest game in the world, right? You just won. You can get as much money as you want. Just let the map run. Well, that wouldn't be much fun. So what a lot of players I've learned do is they put constraints on themselves. If they're on a populated map, they'll say things like, well, I'm not going to build any housing, right? Or very, very minimal housing in special conditions. But in general, I'm going to take advantage of the people and the housing that's already there. Or for me, what I have done in the past, if you watch some of the old live streams I made, and they're not that old as to be irrelevant, if we come back here, this is the center of the map, right? If we look down on our little mini map here, and you could start here where all of a sudden your imports are far, far away, right? Like you would have to build roads, and I put further constraints on myself because one of the problems with starting here is that the trucks can't get to the border on a dirt road. And if you put other constraints on yourself, as far as how you get up to the border or how you build the roads, then this is going to be extremely difficult for you to get started over here, even though you might have oil. I believe, and I hope I'm right. Well, no, I think the oil there's one oil right here. Let me go over to the oil. Yeah, there's some oil right here, yeah. And then there's a little bit of oil. Let me reorient myself right over here. So, yep, there it is. See that? So this is actually a good starting in the center. And the way to orient yourself is see this peninsula? This is a unique feature on the river. Like you won't see another one that's this sharp of a river bend, right? So and again, you're on the center of the map down here if you're trying to find where I'm talking about. But if you wanted a much harder start, you could try to do the same oil start. And it's very doable from here, but it's going to be a bit more challenging because you put the constraint of starting in the middle of the map. If you're starting on like a populated map, a lot of people, you might make a rule. You're not going to import any people. There's a town over here on the populated map. You may... Well, now, wait a minute. Now I need to get my workers from over here to my oil refinery, or maybe you build your oil refinery over here. But do you see how you just added another little constraint, in order to make it a little bit more difficult for you to get over here and get, because your people are going to, oh, there's more oil here. It's going to be a little bit harder for you to get your workers because you're not allowed to buy houses, may be your rule, right? I started out a hardest start. It's my belief that it's darn near the hardest start to start in this valley right here. I plopped my first buildings down here. I made a rule that I wasn't allowed to build unless I built power, or unless I built a road, a gravel road, not just a dirt road, all the way out to the border, right? Now I could build a dirt road, and did, right? So you build a dirt road all the way up to the border, say, wherever border, yeah, back to the same Molna maybe. Or maybe you go over to this one. It might be a little closer. I'm sorry. I'm not sure exactly which one's the closest and easiest to get to, but you get the point. Well, the trucks won't make it all the way there on a dirt road we're going the wrong way. Oh, there it is. The trucks won't make it from here all the way up there on a dirt road. You're going to have to pave maybe up until this area in order for them to get all the way there. Well, if you start with real hard money, that could be a very difficult thing. Another point of strategy is you could go back to, if you watch the last Getting Started, there's another idea that if you put a constraint that you have to build everything you can with the construction offices, that adds a whole nother layer of challenge, right? So instead of just, these, like, we wouldn't in our rules been allowed to build these without having built a construction office first. But in order to build a construction office, you need to put people in a town. So all of a sudden, by making a little constraint, and I'm using quote marks there, even though you can't see it because it's not a video of me, now all of a sudden you have to put a town in. You have to build the support buildings for the people in the town. Even though you don't need many people, you still need one or two housings like we did in the last map, right? Or the last tutorial last Thursday. Again, if you haven't watched that, you can see. So now you have this constraint of having to construct everything, which just changes the dynamic of the game greatly and gets into even gameplay style. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you're still, I don't want to say confused, but if you're still questioning, like, how should I start? It really doesn't ultimately make too much difference. Like, in other words, it's more about how challenging and difficult that you want to make it. I've been talking to someone who did a completely different, play style decision than I did when I do my series. And it looked like a fun way to do it, right? But he had built an oil industry to get started and got everything, just got his money flowing up, right? And it was bigger than this. Like, he didn't just put two down. He kind of filled up the oil field and got a lot of trucks going back and forth. And then he built a refinery, and I think he did a lot of that with just, with very few people. Like, once you go to have a refinery, then you need people. So, he built his first little town, and he did all of that without the construction office, just with whatever starting money, depending on the hardness level he started at. And that it changes the whole dynamic. Now, later on, he started using the construction offices more. There's no reason that you have to use the construction offices. They just, again, they really change the gameplay in the sense of, now you all of a sudden, like right now, there's nothing to stop us as part of our strategy from coming all the way down here, right? Maybe I can look on, look at where there might be coal over here, right? Let me take a look. Where are we at? We're in this corner. I think there might, from what I'm remembering, there's coal somewhere down here. That's iron coal. Yeah, there's a little bit of coal right here, right? And we could come in here, well, actually, we don't even have to do that. Watch this. Watch this. This is another little cheaty thing, real quick. Like, energy related. Coal power plant, right? We come all the way to the other side of the map. And let's pretend we built a little town. And we'll get started. I'm going to reorient this because I realized I did it the wrong way. So especially if you start on easy, I didn't realize that was so unlevel. Or there you go. All right, I'm going to do it this way so that if I ever did build my coal plant here, right? And what we could do, if we had a little town here, picture you would build a little town somewhere over in this area, and then you would just hook up your high voltage lines, and you could do the same kind of, I'll call it almost cheaty thing, right? Where are we at? We want to come over to this one. High voltage lines. We'll get them built, right? Little tiny town, a couple people, power plant doesn't take that many employees, and you've got instant money coming in without even building the coal infrastructure. Yeah, you know what we could do is let's just do this very temporarily. Like, I won't give them what they need, so they're likely to escape, but we could put. And by the way, we can click on, let's put the biggest building and say, well, we're going to get citizens, so we're just going to pay for them with rubles, right? It'll just auto import a bunch of people. Oops. Yeah, can we get green? No. Now, these people aren't going to be very happy, and I don't recommend that you actually, do this. And I'm going to pause it for 1 second just to make sure. Let's get them a road so that we kind of take advantage of them. Yeah, I probably could have spun that guy around a little bit too, couldn't I? Now, I don't know. I'm almost curious thinking about this. Oops. Yeah, this is really a little more hilly than I was picturing. Right? And then we can also do a footpath out the back. And then let's play time. Now, the other thing we can do is it doesn't usually fill them up all the way. Like, we could even purchase more citizens, but you do want to consider invite immigrants, which are not going to be educated, invite Soviet bloc. But look, it's like 4 times or 3 times more expensive, really 4 times, to get the immigrants. Now, these guys look like they're similar price, a little more, but you only get 5 of the educated. We don't need the educated. So I'm just going to fill this building up, even though we really don't need that many people. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you need 3 shifts worth of 20 people. So you need 60 for this building. So the people work an 8-hour day, and that leaves 3 shifts per day. So we have 20 people, right? But we don't have any power going. Well, look, we're going to purchase coal. And you don't have to, you only need the minimum, right? It'll keep purchasing it, and you won't run out. But there we go. Now, what we want to make sure we're doing is exporting, right? And then we'll export. Why not the maximum, right? Look, we're exporting 10 megawatts of power. So if you look, what we have to debate is, are we making enough money? Or like now you ask yourself, well, are you making money on this? And it depends on your coal price, right? So here's our, you might need to leave it run a little bit longer, but now you see we have imports coming in. So we've bought 5,700. Let's see if we can get back there real quick to the Soviet bloc. And this is, oh, we got export. Well, that was the export. We've 5,800. Oh, what happened? It's not going. Oh, Western countries. Yeah, are we? Oh, we're selling to the Western countries. I'm sorry. So there's the power, right? We've got $700 worth of power. And how much coal have we purchased? Keeping in mind, import. Oh, you know what? We're making a big mistake. I'm sorry. I'm purchasing it with rubles. You want to purchase with whatever's the closest. So let's cancel this. Like, it's going to cost you a lot more delivery charge. I'll show you what I mean. Price per ton for coal. So the delivery for this is going to be 111. Almost, and we're right next to the Americans, right? So keep that in mind. So there you go. But that will cut down on the cost. Plus, it also make it a little bit easier. So, yeah, let's play time fast forward. Missing coal. What did I do? Not save it right? Yeah. There we go. All right, so now we can a little more easily compare what we're making. So the import, let's close this, is costing us 1,000, and then the export we're making 200. Part of the problem is that we're not exporting all of the coal or the percentage that we're making, right? Like, so in other words, we're only running at 50% efficiency because when it comes to selling at the electrical thing, we're only selling like half of the power that we could, right? Because we're running at max efficiency in the sense that we have 20 people, but we can only export so much through this one port. That makes sense? But there's like another way that you can get started. And now that we have power, what you would ask yourself is, well, wait a minute, we're doing too much. Let's do the imports. Import from the Western country. Yeah, we've imported 1,000 worth of coal, and we've exported 3,000 worth of power. So our dollars are just shooting up. Now you could do the similar thing, find coal near the border. And again, remember what I'm talking about is there we got two money-making industries. Now our dollars are going up. Each time we get a truck, our rubles are going up, and we really haven't done much of anything. So definitely consider putting constraints on yourself. Pick a map, maybe watch some other people's YouTube videos, and put some constraints on how you start. Do you want to just make a rule? No, I'm not going to start with oil this time. I'm going to try to build an agricultural industry over here first, just as a way of adding to the challenge, because I think, the fun of this game is balancing an economy, and I really hope one day that they can put on, like scenarios where there's going to be these artificial rules that might prevent you from doing certain things. Like and then one of my favorite rules is that all of my settlements need to be connected. Where the heck did we go? There it is. By roads, right? So if I decide to start in the middle of the map, then I can't just jump across the entire map and build someplace else. So I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them in the comments or on the Discord. There's other guys and players, whether they're other YouTube videos or just people in general in the comments section may have other ideas. So I welcome different ideas. I mean, other people have started, well, you could just build a lumber industry, right? So there's really no wrong way to start, other than I would say, take a look at the pricing and use what I would call common sense. One of the reasons this is working out is because we're close to the border, and you get 50 rubles and $50 for an export. So, but we have no expenses almost with this besides a little bit of power that we're using to run these things. So try to keep all of that in mind. So look for the more expensive things. Some things are more involved, and most other things are going to need some people to run them. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, there you go. I think the easiest way to start the game is either with this or coal power. And the only thing I would say with the coal, like, what's to stop us from building 10 of those or just maximizing out our initial starting cash, right? Even if you're on hard mode, you can afford to do this. Like, we haven't spent hardly any money, right? Like, if we focused on making rubles instead of coming over here, our rubles would be going up. I mean, so you don't even need $1 million to get started, and you could build 3 more of these plants and get them all hooked up. Now, the problem is you can only export so much through here. Like, even the game devs know that that's an issue, but there's nothing to stop us from exporting some more of it to over here, right? So anyway, I hope that helps. I hope everything I said is fairly accurate. And I know that if you are an experienced player, I know that I may not have covered everything, and that's why I definitely welcome your comments. This video is more made for someone who wants to get started and, may not understand that there's a few ways to make it really easy to get started. And I really encourage you to make it harder to get started. You don't have to make it impossible, but try to set up a few rules for yourself. Limit, again, you have to build from town to town. You might choose to deliberately not start with oil. You might choose to particularly make a lumber industry work or not. And don't be afraid to fail, and learn about the economics of the game. It's a very fun little economy simulator in that respect. Don't be afraid to just do the road construction manually. That changes the game greatly versus auto building things, and adds a whole nother logistics challenge to the game. And as you get further into the game, you build railroads and yeah. And at some point, it's just too much to cover in a half hour, right? All the different possibilities of where you could start and which industry to start with. But bottom line is get yourself some exports, whether you're making it hard on yourself or not. And really, I could go off and have lunch and come back and I'd probably have plenty of money. There's nothing's going to go wrong on this map with just these few trucks going back and forth, right? Got a steady source of power. After, what's it been, 20 minutes, we don't have any traffic jams. There's no reason to believe that these machines don't wear out. Now, there is a problem of things catching on fire. So keep that in mind too. And I've heard some people even say that they'll plop down a firehouse and just keep purchasing like people to come in and work at the firehouse. So you do want to consider something like that. I'll just put it like kind of right in the middle here, and then maybe we just plop down one residence. I'll do my favorite tall brick flats that I did mostly in the last episode as well. Right now, the people that come in, and I had it on auto purchase citizens. They don't have any other place to go. Now, they will escape eventually, and I'd have to purchase more. So, you're quickly going to want to build a town. But the point is, you may even just take your chances on whether or not these things burn down, right? It depends on the settings that you chose in the beginning, the fire risk settings. Now, you do need to buy a fire truck. I tend to recommend, getting one of the better ones, the level 12, and that's like the number of firefighters, which if you get bigger buildings catching on fire, that does make a difference. Especially like an industry like the refinery could use a couple extra firemen. But there you go. Now that we got people, or a fire truck, you can see people going in. So, and there's a lot of little things that you still need to learn about the game that I haven't even come close to covering in this beginning part. But this is, to me, more about like the strategy of getting started. Where do I want to plop down my first town, and what constraints do I want to put on myself, or do I just want to do it easy peasy mode, right? Build up an oil industry, get the imports going, get the money coming in. There, I hope it makes sense. So in some ways you got to know a little bit about a game, I know, to make the strategy up. I hope this helps you. Again, I really welcome any comments from people and how they like to start, and maybe the newer people can read through the comments and expand the conversation, right? All right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.